If you have an interest in horses and love learning more about horses, the horse industry, teaching, or even managing your own horse business, then you're in the right place. We would love you to join us on our mission, which is to improve the lives of horses around the world through the education of riders, handlers, and trainers. So get comfortable, listen in, and enjoy.
This has been another episode sponsored by Online Horse College. If you haven't had a look at the wide variety of equine-specific accredited courses, then go to onlinehorsecollege.com and I'll see you over there. Our guest today on Horse Chats is going to be Jim Masterson. But before we do that, I'd just like to introduce you to Sophie Barrington from Archer Creative, who's the sponsor of today's episode. If you need anything to do with websites, design, or social media marketing, she's absolutely the person to go to. She's got international clients all over the world, and you can find her details on Horse Chat. So go to horsechats.com, search for Sophie, search for Barrington, or search for Archer Creative for everything in websites, design, and social media marketing. Now, we've got Jim Masterson today. Jim is a bit of a legend. He's a massage body therapist. He's done quite a lot of work. He's worked with the United States Equestrian Federation endurance teams. He's worked with thousands of horses competing at top-level hunter-jumper horse shows in the United States and in the FEI World Cup, Pan American and World Equestrian Games competition. So he's not just working on backyard horses. He's working on top-level horses that really do need the extra bit to go out there and do well and win. How are you today, Jim?
I'm fine, thank you. I can add that I've worked on some very nice backyard horses, though.
Well, I just think because what happens is you start off and you might be working on your own horses, when you first get a method, become qualified and start to do a business. But I think then if you're good, people can see the work and they will keep going, and you do end up working with some very, very good horses. Yep.
Yeah, it is. It's about results when you're doing body work. So if you can get results, then they're going to call you back.
Exactly. And the word of mouth too. Horse industry is full of word of mouth. Mm-hmm. So, I'm sure you build up a great reputation. So, heard about you before I've spoken to you. So that's pretty good.
Oh, okay. I hope you've heard some good things.
Oh, perfect. Yep. Jim, tell us about your favourite quote. That's something that I like to start off with because I think your favourite quote often talks about you before we even start.
Yeah, well, there is one because, the type of body work that we do, it's about reading the horses, subtle changes in the horse's behavior or body language as you're working on them. And you follow that. You follow what the horse is telling you with his body language or what I call responses. And there are two old horsemen. They're not alive anymore here in the States. They were in California called the Dorrance brothers, Bill and Tom Dorrance. And I was reading a book that was written about them. And one of them said something that really kind of struck me. He said the ride begins when the horse sees you get out of the truck or the car. Mm-hmm. So that's how tuned in they are to our energy and our body work. They see you get out of the car, they know what it's going to be like. So it's a very simple quote, and it doesn't on the surface have anything to do with body work, but it has a lot to do with how tuned in the horse is to us.
Yes, and sees you approaching. I'm just putting, because some people aren't going to get out of the truck and turn up at their horse or at the horse farm, it just depends on the situation. But I certainly understand the whole thing behind it.
Well, yeah, when they see you, they see you walking towards them. That's all they need, really.
Yep. Jim, tell us about how you started with horses. Tell us about an early memory or something that you've learned about horses, something that, every time you interact with a horse, I think you probably learn. But has it been something that's been a bit of a breakthrough for you? Yeah.
Yeah, everybody knows, it's an unending learning experience with horses. But when I was younger, horses were just fun. They were something you got on and rode for me. But later on in life, I'd gone through some different careers. And then about, I think it's 20 years ago, I was between jobs, and there was a local show barn near us here in Iowa, and the trainer was just starting up with a couple of families that wanted to show around at the hunter jumper shows around the country, and she needed a groom and somebody to haul the horses and groom at the shows. And she had a home, a groom at home, but she needed somebody that could travel with her. And so my wife said, "Why don't you go to work for Val and try this? It could be fun." So I had experience with show horses or competition horses, but I took the job, and that's how I got into this, because I saw horses, very high level horses, getting different therapies, different treatments, chiropractic or osteopathic or acupressure, equine massage, sports massage therapy. And I noticed that when there are a couple key things that got my attention about it, because I had no background in massage therapy or any kind of therapy at all, or any interest in learning. But I was watching the horse while they were working on them. And one instance, there was a horse chiropractor, an old guy from New Zealand who lived in the States, and the vets, he'd been working on horses for 40 years, and he learned from another old guy who'd been doing it for 40 years. And the vets on the East Coast, on the show circuit, some very high-level vets would bring a guy in from California to treat their horses. And so he was really good. He got amazing results. He used very long lever forceful techniques, which I don't use, and they probably take a long time to learn. But the thing is, he got amazing results, and he really would read the horse. Like after he did an adjustment, he would step back to do what he said, called see what the horse has to say. And he'd give the horse a minute to see what it had to say. And if he got a good adjustment, the horse might lower its head to the ground and stand there with a dazed look on its face and shake its head and start yawning repeatedly. And so that really got my interest, that the horse talking to him. So that I started paying attention to him. And then there was another instance where at a show in Estes Park, Colorado, where our trainer hired a couple of massage therapists to come in and work on our horses, and they started the treatment with what they called just running their hand lightly down the bladder meridian, which is the traditional Chinese medicine energy line that kind of follows the top line of the horse on the side. And they did that to relax the horse, but as they were doing that, noticed that every once in a while the horse would blink, and its eye would twitch or its lip would twitch, and it was blinking because of what they were doing. It wasn't just blinking. And so I was intrigued by that, so I experimented with it, and I ran my hand down this line, and I learned later you can do this anywhere on the horse. It doesn't have anything to do with that line, but as you run your hand lightly, no pressure at all, down this line and you get a blink, the horse is telling you something's there. And I experimented with it. I wasn't sure it was me or the horse. I ran my hand over that spot again, and I got a blink at the exact same spot, almost to the hair. And so that meant something then. The horse was actually telling me something. And the next thing I did is I just waited there, because I wasn't trained to do anything, any massage or anything. So I just waited. And if I waited there with no pressure on the horse and did nothing, that pretty soon the horse would start to drop its head, it lick and chew, and in some cases it would start to yawn repeatedly. So there was a connection there between what I was doing and what the horse was doing. The horse was telling me he'd released a huge amount of tension. And so that's what got me interested in this. And I started just experimenting with it and learning as much as I could as I went along. And eventually I started treating our horses in our training barn, and started working on other horses on the show circuit. And just, it turned into this. I started working for 9 years. I just worked on show horses, and started teaching, because people wanted to learn it, because it's very interactive with the horse. It's not just learning, what a muscle is and how to manipulate it. It's about interacting with the horse. So that's how I got started on this.
Yes, and I think the interacting bit's interesting, that you're not saying, right, well, there's the spot I'm going to mass him, but you just waited and you had some pressure on it? Or?
No, yeah. Well, no, I learned that less is more, the less pressure you put on an area. Now, you can massage, if you find an area that has tension, you can massage it, or you can just back off and put no pressure on it and wait for the horse's nervous system to start to release it. And I've learned later that what's happening is when you put pressure on the horse, the sympathetic nervous system kicks in. That's part of the nervous system that protects itself, the fight or flight or freeze part. And if you take off the pressure, the parasympathetic starts to kick in if you have the patience to wait for it to do it. And the horse will start to release the tension. And it's because you're bringing the horse's awareness to something he's been blocking out in a way that he can't brace against it. So if there's no pressure, the horse can't brace. And so they have no choice but to start, their parasympathetic nervous system starts to release it.
Tell me then, you started at the one barn, and when did you actually think, oh, maybe there's a profession in this? At what stage was that? When did you think this is going to be my career?
Yeah. Well, right away I wanted to do it. So when I saw this guy doing chiropractic, I wanted to do that. And I learned that I couldn't do that because it takes a lot of training, and also the laws in America are such that most states, or probably all states, chiropractic is, you have to be trained and licensed to do that. So, but I realized early on this is what I wanted to do. And so I started doing it, and I started learning more and more and working on more and more horses. And but the thing was, I stuck with it. So it's hard, it's not easy to start a business, working on horses and treating horses. And you have to do it one horse at a time. And like you said, it's by word of mouth. And if you get results, they'll call you back. So it wasn't easy to build it up, build the business up. But if you stick with it and you love what you're doing, then you're going to be successful at it. And so the answer to that is very early on. I realized I wanted to do this. There were times when I thought it's never going to happen. It's just too hard. But my wife calls it the last man standing rule. If you're the last man standing, you're going to get the job. So I just stuck with it.
Yeah. Now, what about if someone is interested in doing this sort of work? If he came to you and said, I want you to train me how to do this work, what sort of core skills or character traits would they need for you to say, I think it's worth you starting this and I'll teach you?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, because that's what I'm in the teaching business now. I eventually started doing weekend clinics, and then other therapists wanted to learn more, and they were interested in more, in more advanced course. So I did that, and it's turned into, I'm in the teaching business. I actually don't have clients that I work on regularly, and but so anybody can come and learn how to do this. Anybody can start doing this.
But what about the people who excel in it, who you go, yeah, you're really going to be better than everyone else? What sort of core skills or character traits would those need? Yeah.
Well, that there are people that just have a knack for it in their naturals, and it's interesting because the younger people that come are the ones that have learned haven't gotten stuck in any habits with horses, so they're kind of an open book, and so they're really open to learning, and they haven't developed any bad habits. So you have to learn how to soften with the horse. People that have horse experience, that's a big plus. There are people that come that don't have a lot of horse experience that have a kind of a natural fit for this, but they eventually gain the horse experience. But mainly to not to be narrow-minded about it, and be open to just being wrong with something. Because when you work on a horse with this method, it's always an experiment. You're asking the horse, and you're paying attention to what the horse is saying to you, and you follow that. And if you can't be open to that and be a little bit counterintuitive, then you're going to have a harder time picking it up. If you're not open to just letting go of what you've already learned and some of the habits you have that you may not even know that you have.
Mm-hmm. What do you think is the best thing about doing that, having hands-on working experience with horses?
Oh, well, it's just very fulfilling to experience or see or be a part of a horse doing the same, completely letting go, letting their guard down, because they're programmed for survival. Everybody, they're still very much fight or flight animals, and probably a little more on the flight side. And so they in the wild, and in captivity, they're programmed to block out pain and discomfort, because that's how they survive. In the wild, if they start to show signs of lameness at the first sign of discomfort, they're a target. So that's why it's so hard to evaluate lameness in horses, because they cover it up as much as they can. And so if you can get underneath that bracing and guarding response, it's amazing what the horse will let go of physically, but also the relationship with the horse. The communication and relationship with the horse is a large part of why people like to learn this method. I mean, there are a lot of people that aren't involved with, aren't necessarily interested in competition or performance, that come to learn this simply because they know their horse is covering or hiding something, and they want to help it let it go.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've talked about the Dorrance brothers. You talked about, what was the guy's name, the New Zealand guy that was the chiropractor?
Well, I don't know. He might be known in New Zealand. He's been pretty well known in America. And his name was Graham Boyd, and he didn't train people. And when I would follow him, and when he was at the same place I was, it was always on the road somewhere. And when our trainer would hire him, or if the vets would ask him to come in, and I'd offer to just help, I picked up a lot of stuff just watching him. But when he was actually, a lot of people knew him, especially on the West Coast. And he told me, he said, it's kind of interesting. He said, I don't want you to say you were trained by Graham Boyd, because everybody says they're trained by Graham Boyd, and they're not, because he didn't train people. And I always honored that. I said, I'll never tell anybody I was trained by Graham Boyd, but I would, I did learn a lot just watching him.
Yep. So he's influenced you a lot then. Yep.
Oh, yeah, a lot, yeah.
Anyone else that you think's influenced you a lot?
Well, not like necessarily specific people. There's a huge, or in the last 20 years or so or more, there's been a huge rise in interest in natural horsemanship, and kind of training methods that aren't, fear-based or force-based. And so I think that's been huge. There are a lot of trainers in the States here and in Australia and England that are in the same, they're doing the similar things with horses. They're working with the horse rather than against the horse or on the horse. So all of them, even some of them that are maybe too big and too commercial. Some people don't like that aspect about them, but they have helped transform the whole view of horse training, at least in America, I know for sure, and it appears to be in Australia too.
For sure.
Mark Rashid, I work with him, and he's the epitome of softness and working with the horse. And in November, I'm excited. We're going to be doing a clinic at Steve Halfpenny's place in Adelaide. So I mean, all these trainers are on the same. They're all on board.
Yeah. That's good. Now, tell us, and I want you to put on your thinking cap about maybe a case study or something. A horse that you think you've made a big improvement on. What do you think's your biggest case study or your best case study?
Oh, I don't know if there's a biggest or a best. Because I've worked on so many horses, and some horses it helps a lot, and some horses it doesn't help because they need something else.
Tell us about one that's you've helped a lot.
Well, I probably the ones early on that helped me were the ones that it made a big difference in, and it made me realize that it was working. I remember just a simple case early on with a girl that was showing in Wellington, and I was every 2 weeks I would work on their horses. They had about 5 horses. And one day she went out for a hack and came with her friend and came back with a big smile and said, "Wow, I've never seen my horse's front feet when he was trotting out before, and now she could see his front feet." And it was a big deal for her, because the range of motion had changed, and it was just simple, treatment. So that was early on. I mean, that's not a huge, spectacular case.
It's enough, it's enough. But just those subtle differences, and it's the ongoing subtle differences, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, there are others, I get emails all the time of people that just do this simple bladder meridian technique that I described, and it's so simple, and it's almost hard to do it. It's so simple. All it takes is patience and softness, and it makes huge changes in horses that have serious issues that have been in trailering accidents or slipped and fallen, and they get up and they trot off sound, but they've jammed something in their nervous system. It's like when we get in a car accident and we're okay, we go to the hospital and the doctor says you're okay, you're good to go, but something's jammed up in your nervous system and your core muscles, and that really light, simple technique will get a horse to just let go of that. And I'll get emails all the time from people that are saying it's like they have a new horse, and I tell them, well, how much is that horse worth? Because you can send me a check, but that doesn't usually work. but that happens all the time. And also, just one more thing. I recently at a clinic in California, I worked on a horse, and as I was working on it, I asked the owner, has this horse been in a fall or an accident? Because it's really jacked up inside. And on the outside, the horse was sound, but her complaint was, and this had been getting worse for years with the horse, that the horse just wasn't settled. It was nervous, it was afraid, and this horse, that's not who this horse was. But for the last few years, that's what was happening. And as I worked on the horse, I realized something had really happened to this horse. And I asked her, and she said, "No, I can't remember anything." And as I worked on the horse, I did this one technique to it, and its nose dropped, and it started to stagger. And as I continued this, it was a gentle thing. The horse his legs kept buckling, or her legs kept buckling, and she would have fallen if I'd have kept going. And that, because something deep inside let go. And one of the students was videotaping it on her phone, and I have it on my website. But later, a week later, she emailed me and she says, "I remember now what happened to the horse. That horse had fallen into a ditch, and they had to pull it out, with the truck. And they were very gentle about it, as much as they could be. But she remembered that something had happened. So that's another instance of for me, not that works, but how horses can cover up stuff like that just to survive. They have no choice but to keep going. So if you can get underneath that how much you can help them.
It's like peeling back layers of onion.
Oh, yeah. And that horse had a lot of layers.
Yeah.
It was a big onion.
What do you think's been your proudest moment?
Oh, probably things like that.
Yeah.
Nothing big, nothing huge, just like that.
You sound like a very humble person, but I can see underneath the humbleness that
I'm the humblest person I know. Well, that helps, when you're working with horses. It helps if you're willing to not be the boss. You want to be the leader and you want to be the confident one, but you have to be open to not knowing everything.
Not be the bully.
Even with the horse.
Yeah. And how long ago was this that you started?
About the year 2000.
Okay. So that's nearly 2 decades. And there's been a lot of changes in the industry, a lot more openness now than what there was. And the advances in science and the openness of the industry. But earlier on, did you get challenges from people saying, "Oh, you're just doing nothing," what sort of challenges did you get to have the industry accept you so openly now?
Yeah, well, I was surprised because, it was in general, there were a lot of, because I was working with show jumpers, there were a lot of trainers that this wasn't, if they couldn't fix it and the vet couldn't fix it, then it wasn't fixable. So there was a lot of resistance from some trainers, but there were some that were open because they could see the difference in the horse. So that was a good thing. But I was surprised when I started teaching this, how many people came that were open to it, because I was thinking, from my growing up with horse people, a lot of them, they were kind of set in their ways, and tradition was tradition, and I thought they would challenge me on this. But I was surprised the people that came to the courses weren't like that. So that was kind of refreshing. I didn't have to, and I was ready for it. I was ready to have to answer their questions, but it didn't turn out that way on the teaching end. And on the working on horses end, there were those people that were a little bit, they didn't think it would work, or they thought it was a bunch of baloney. And they would say so, not that I asked them, but they would say so anyways. But I learned after a while not to put my attention on those people, just put my attention on the people that were getting it. Yeah. And that was a big change for me. Yeah. I wasted a lot of time and energy trying to convince people, especially trainers, that it would work. And I realized a couple of things that happened, that they just weren't going to accept it, no matter how much it helped their horses. And then I decided to focus on the people that were going to get it. And as you said, it's been growing. That group of people has been growing, and the science behind it's been growing. It's been going in that direction too.
When you first start off, you say you've got a new group of people that you haven't started before, and they're interested, they want to learn. But what's a common fault you see with them when they first start off? They say, "Look, I'm happy to learn a new technique. I want to help my horse as much as I can." And then what would be the biggest thing that holds them back? What are they doing wrong?
They're used to, as humans, when we feel something brace or push against us, we push back or we pull back. And it takes a lot of people, that's the way they've learned to do things, especially with horses. And it's interesting because it turns out that's how they deal with life too, is when they come up against something, they push back against. And they do the same thing with the horse. So to be open to that, it's a little counterintuitive, and it takes a little bit of training, but not much. Once it clicks, people start to get it, and eventually it'll just become natural that when the horse pulls on you, you don't pull back, you yield. And if you yield the instant they start to pull, they're going to stop pulling. And if they keep pulling, it's because you're still pulling, even if you think you're not.
Yep.
So, but it's interesting because now, in teaching people to see that connection between how they work with the horses, kind of what their challenges are in life. The people that are very goal-oriented, when you're teaching them to do something on the horse or practice a technique on the horse, and they're so focused on the outcome and getting to the outcome that they're not feeling when the horse is bracing against it. Okay. And it's completely in their head. You're a little goal oriented, aren't you? And they'll laugh, because they know they are. Mm. And once they get it, they start to change. They start to change that. It might take them a little longer than other people. That it changes the way that you deal with people and other things in life too. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I can't charge $200 an hour like a psychologist for that, but it's still kind of cool to see the change, or for whatever they get.
So the goal-orientated people, once they realise that they're trying to get the outcome instead of developing the feeling, mm-hmm. That's the main thing. That's the way to fix it. You talk to them. How can you get them from being so goal-orientated? Yep.
Well, first, as you point that out, that they're getting too focused on the outcome,
yes,
and not going with the horse on it. And then something clicks, and then they go, oh, and they go to do it again, and they do it without doing that.
Yes.
But then they get back into the habit right away. If they're working on a challenging horse that's really bracing, then the bracing kicks back in. But if you remind them again, then they get it. And pretty soon they're just naturally doing it. And it's about practice,
Yep.
And that's with the clinics, the weekend clinics. We teach the Beyond Horse Massages, the book
mm-hmm.
and DVD we have. And those are the
I was just going to talk about the book, actually.
And,
yeah.
Well, they go home and practice. And then if they come back for the 5-day advanced course, there's a lot of practice. And by the end of the day, there's usually a big change in those people.
Okay. Good. If you're an equestrian coach or a horse riding instructor, or even if you aspire to be one, have a look at the free video series for horse riding instructors on the Horse Chats website. Go there now. Have a look. horsechats.com. All right, so the book, Beyond Horse Massage, was that mainly for people to take away after your clinic?
So when I started doing the weekend clinics, and I chose these bodywork techniques to teach in the weekend clinic.
Yep.
Once I got those set, I thought, well, I need to do a book. First I did a DVD.
Yep.
Because I thought it would help people in the clinic. And then I did a book that kind of fills in a lot of the background and the anatomy and some of the biomechanics. It's not the anatomy because it's not about the names of the muscles. It's about the horse. But anyways, books and DVD are for people to start to go home and try themselves.
Okay.
Okay. The way I look at it is if they go home and they try some of these things and they work, they're going to want to come back and learn some more. So then the next step is come to the weekend club.
Okay.
And even before you buy the book and the DVD, I put lots of YouTube video clips on how to practice, how to do different things with your horse to release tension in your horse. And the whole thing is the more that I share it, the more people are going to try it. And if it clicks with them, it's something that really resonates with them, then they're going to want to come to learn it. Because early on, I got a lot of feedback from people, oh, you're putting too much out on YouTube and you're giving too much away. But that's not how it works for me. It works that the more I share it, the more people are going to try it and like it, and the more people want to come to learn it. So apart from just being open with it, it's pretty good. It turns out it's pretty good business too.
Yes. Yeah.
To share. And not try to. That's the same thing. It's like things are changing in the world. It used to be that when you knew something, you played your cards close to your chest, you kept it to yourself, and if somebody wanted to pay for it, you sold something to them. But it's different now. It's kind of a whole change in attitude with people towards horses and towards everything.
Yep. The other one I was going to talk to you about, because we've got the Beyond Horse Massage, but you've co-authored couple of books, Dressage Movements Revealed and The Dressage Horse Optimized. What contribution did you have to those two books?
Well, Coralie Hughes is a dressage trainer, and she came and took my course and learned how to do this, and she became one of my instructors because she's very good at it, and she has a lot of knowledge, and she had the right attitude too. She was very open. She's ready to learn and try something different, and she's very aware of the horse. And so she became an instructor, and we just got together with the idea that what if we did a video and a book on, for me, the focus was on biomechanics. And dressage just happened to be the medium for that because, in dressage, the horse, in the upper level dressage movements, the horse pretty much uses all the muscles that they use in pretty much any discipline. And so since Coralie was trained in dressage, we chose dressage. And another thing is I worked on so many dressage horses that were so sore and tight and overexerted. And so that bothered me. And for me, the goal was for the book and DVD was to make the rider aware, not of all the muscles and how everything works, just that there was a horse underneath them that had muscles and skeleton that could be overworked, and that the horse could be having problems or potential problems, even though it wasn't telling them, because the horse will just keep trying, keep doing it until they're lame, that they'll just keep going, or until they get so sore that they misbehave, and then the rider or the trainer thinks it's a training issue, and actually there's a physiological component to it that they're not aware of. So I just wanted to create that awareness. And for Coralie, it was great because that's her world was dressage and then biomechanics and then and body work. So it was a really good match.
Okay. Yep. No, that's good. And remember, you can find all the books recommended by our guests at horsechats.com/books. You can have a look at the guest page for the individual book they recommended, or just look at the recommended books by order of popularity at horsechats.com/books. What are you looking forward to at the moment?
Well, I'm always looking to reach more people, not just to share it because that's just what I do, and it pays the rent and it makes me a living and I love doing it. So what more could you want? But I want to expand on the programs, expand on the training. Light to the Core is a DVD that I did a couple years ago, just focusing on not on just really light touch and learning how to follow the horse's responses, but start to pay attention to what the horse is telling you in the rest of the body. So as an example of expanding a program, that's taking, some of our techniques involve movement and manipulation, and some involve just very light touch and watching for subtle responses in the horse. But it's interesting that you can be working on one part of the horse, say the lower neck, and you step back and see what the horse has to say and give him time to feel it, and the horse might stomp his hind leg because he's feeling something in the groin muscles. That's connected to the lower neck, and if you get out some books or do some research and look at the anatomy, you can see there's connections between the lower neck and the hind end through for example, the ventral train, fascial train from the hyoid bone down to the sternum up into the groin. And on the top line, there's the long back muscle, which attaches in the lower neck on one end and goes along each side of the back and attaches to the pelvis and the sacrum on the other end. So if you use very light touch that the horse can't brace against, and you make the horse aware of where he's feeling tension, you'll start to see what's going on in other parts of the body that are connected to where you're working on. So, as an example, you asked, where are we going with? Where am I going with this? It's just to keep getting what I've learned and what my community has learned, and getting it out there for other people to learn.
That's good. Just in a sentence or two, can you summarize your philosophy with treating horses? Being a therapist for horses.
Well, I guess I could do it in one sentence. It's working with the horse rather than against the horse.
Okay, no, that's good. Jim, if people want to contact you and talk to you a little bit more, what's the best way?
Well, the website age, so mastersonmethod.com is our website, and it on there you can find everything. You can find our courses, our course calendar. You can find, if you go to one of the buttons is training videos, and you bring it down, you can see I have, like I said, probably 20 or 30 video clips on YouTube teaching people how to do different things. And again, you're going to it's going to resonate with you or not. So you go and try it. But the website is the best way.
Okay.
On our course calendar, we have a course calendar. I'm coming to Australia in November. I come once a year, and it's usually in November. And I'll be doing clinics in York, in Victoria, near Melbourne.
Yep.
Just before Equitana, and then I'll be at Equitana, and then I'll be doing a clinic after Equitana at Steve Halfpenny's in Adelaide, and then coming back to Victoria at York at the Mayfield Centre. It's the Equine College, the Australian College of Equine Podiatry, run by Andrew and Nikki Bowe. That's where I'll be based for most of my time there.
Okay,
we'll be doing
good.
weekend clinics and a couple advanced courses. And so I thought I'd get the advert in, before we're done there. That was the advert.
Yeah. I'm just thinking because, we've got Steve and Andrew. It's great to have people that you're associating with are already guests on Horse Chats, It's just nice to have that community too of people.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to ask if they've been on, because if they haven't, they should.
No, actually, Andrew was up here last weekend. He did a clinic up here. So,
cool.
Yeah. No, so it's great to have a community of people that are all there really for the welfare of the horse, looking at welfare of the horse.
Yeah.
I think that's important. Yep.
Yeah, and it's amazing with the internet now how we can all connect. People, like-minded people can connect and cooperate. And I think it was Mark Rashid who I've connected with here and I've been doing clinics with. I think we call it cross-pollinating.
Yes. Yep. Jim, good to talk to you. Really good. And as I said, it's good to have that common communication, common bond. And we'd love to have you back on again. So
yeah, I'd be happy to.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your time today, and hopefully we'll catch up soon.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Now, if you're still there, you probably know that I'm absolutely passionate about education within the horse industry. That's why I host this podcast. My other venture is Online Horse College. Have a look now at onlinehorsecollege.com and I'll see you over there.
Remember that our comments and instructions are general in nature and do not take into consideration your individual horses or your individual ability and circumstances. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please leave your comment below.